Hey everyone, so KoBaC here. So last week I made a video talking about the rotations and all the other leaks and all the other stuff, and in that video I had a lot of people tell me that I was wrong. Several people told me I was toxic. Ooh. Well, we're going to get into more because not that I'm trying to be an instigator, but actually because I care about the community and even the people that might be on the poorer end of things in the player base. So today, Ravensburger had their big hoopla, and we did a whole bunch of new reveals. I say we, I wasn't there. And there was a whole bunch of new reveals for stuff coming out in Reign of Jafar. There was discussion on worlds. There was a discussion a little bit on reprints. There was a discussion on rotations and on and on and on. There was all this, general positivity. But was it positive? So they did discuss the leaks. I don't think it was handled well myself. And you might be saying, KoBaC, what would you know? It's not like you run your own game studio. I do. It's small. I know. It's not on the scale of Ravensburger, but I do. And I've had to do plenty of what would be the equivalent of press releases and updates on new products. And I've had to admit I messed up and we had to fix products or we had to change stats of things. I've done a lot of that over the years. So I am familiar with announcing things and all of that. And I'm a much smaller operation. But I don't think it was handled very well. Ravensburger had the better part of a week to kind of check the pulse of the community. And what they decided to do was the same. There was no real indication that they pivoted on anything. The leaks were 100% confirmed all the way across the board. We'll get into that in a few minutes. But yeah, and I think the attitude from Ravensburger overall was very dismissive of people's concerns. It just glossed over them and just said, this is healthy for the meta. It's healthy for the game. Buy it. And then they just ran away from it. And I think that what should have happened, as I stated in my original leaked, the video talking about the leaks, which I recognize I have next to zero influence over Ravensburger or the community at large. But I think that the way that they handled it, they had about over a week, or better part of a week, to look at things and to check how people were feeling. And I think they ignored all of that. Now, I don't know that. They may have checked and they felt, look, we have seen X number of positive comments. We've kind of figured that, maybe that works out and we're fine. Maybe. And yes, they're the people that are in charge of the, multi-million-dollar company. So they must know what they're talking about. And I'm just the dumb consumer who buys their product. I get that. I can totally get that. But I'm rubber and you're glue. Did you think of that? No. So Ryan Miller, who was one of the co-creators of Lorcana, they referenced a video that he had created because he couldn't be at the event. Internal screaming. He discussed the rotation, why it needed to happen, because it was healthy for the game, right? It would be too difficult if there were too many cards in the meta at any one time. He said that for now, the plan is to rotate annually. They are creating the Infinity game mode, which I think will see next to no support, not from Ravensburger, but from the players, because they, as Ryan Miller pointed out, we can play with the cards at home, all the cards that we own, and that was to the shock of nobody. We obviously know we could play with the cards at home. That's just... but we won't be able to play with them in the standard core constructed, which is the regular game mode right now. And that we also got information that Infinity will have its own ban list later on, which I don't have a problem with because they will need to, kind of help protect the meta of Infinity, even though it will probably see, like I said, barely any support for. They did say Infinity will be at some of the DLCs. That is true. And there will be people, I promise, that will play. But overall, in terms of you and me sitting at home, we might decide to play Infinity every once in a while, but we really know that that's not the meat of the game. The meat of the game is whatever is in the core constructed. That's what matters, right? To the health and the future of the game. Because as you've said, that's the health of the game. So Infinity is just a dog treat on top of, that's a terrible analogy. I'm not going to go there. And I think, like I said, I don't think that's really that great. I think the way that they have handled the rotation was piss poor, honestly, because they mentioned, people will be upset, but we need to do this. Every healthy game does this. And that might be entirely true. And I want to state very clearly, because there were some very mean comments directed at me, I am not against, as an absolute, I am not absolutely against rotations. I am, however, very much against the way that they're doing the rotations for Lorcana. And we're going to get into why. I'm going to show you. I made a chart, right? You're going to love it. It's the beautiful chart. Beautiful chart. You're going to love it. They did discuss that stores can play Infinity, but most stores aren't going to. Most stores barely have a player base for Lorcana anyway. So if we split it, who's going to be going to Infinity, right? It's either going to have mass player support for Infinity or it's not. It's probably how it's going to play out. And with all of the Magic the Gathering fans that have either moved over to Lorcana, or they just watched my video and just told me I'm stupid, that's, everyone's going to want to do core. So, other things that they discussed. Reprints. They showed us technically 5. But really only confirmed 4, weirdly. Maleficent Dragon is being reprinted, which was also confirmed in the leaks. She is going to be the store championship for set 9. That actually is kind of cool. I think that playmat is going to be highly sought after. I really do. The next card that was, or another one that was going to be reprinted, was the Rockstar Stitch, which was also in the leaks. Pooh Sorcerer, and they were very excited for the vanilla of vanilla cards to be reprinted. I don't know why. And it's not because I'm against Sorcerer Pooh. I just think that if you have a limited number of reprints, why would you reprint a vanilla card that nobody plays? If you really wanted to bring him back, and you really wanted to, because he's going to be one of the Enchanteds in set 9. If you really wanted to bring him back for that, I have no issue with that. But give him some sort of ability, or 2 abilities, right? He has nothing. He has no text for abilities. He just has his base stats. That's boring. Why is that a card that's going to be getting an Enchanted? Why? Why would we waste one of our Enchanted slots for a card that has no special abilities? He's not stellar because he's cheap to play. He's not stellar because he's overly strong. He's not stellar because he has crazy good health, or he's crazy good at questing. He is vanilla across the entire board. Don't know why he's being reprinted. The other one that was a new surprise, that was a new thing to say, is that Tinkerbell Giant Fairy is being reprinted. I think that's a great card to be reprinted. Same with Maleficent Dragon. Rockstar Stitch, kind of meh. Not because it's a bad card, not because it has a bad ability, but because as of right now, it's difficult to play because we don't really have a really good shift line to get to him. Yeah, you have the first chapter Stitch, but that's really it. The other kinds of Stitches are kind of meh. There's none that are like, oh, that's a really good one. That's how we're going to get Rockstar Stitch to be meta. That's how he's going to be playable. And then the last one that was half confirmed was the first chapter Elsa, the smaller 3-drop one. That is also one of those cards. Why in the world are you bringing that back? Why not Big Elsa? If you're going to do something and be like, oh, look, Big Elsa's back, right? Why that one? It's not a great card. It was okay during set 1, set 2 era. Now it's not. It's just not good. It's not bad. It's just not great. Why would that one be coming back? But they didn't really say that was coming back. They just showed it with the epic rarity, which that was a big thing. They wanted to really talk about the 2 new rarities. I don't disagree that they're cool-ish. I just don't think that at the end of the day, what was crazy to me was that, like I mentioned, Ravensburger had the better part of a week with these leaks. There was nowhere, if you are against rotation, there was nowhere near the level of good stuff for finding out you're going to lose effectively half your collection in August, right? There was nothing to be equivalent. And I think that that's a really big demonstration that Ravensburger does not have their finger on the pulse of the community, because I see lots of people upset, regardless of the people who have commented telling me that I'm big dumb for having big, stupid, tiny, dumb ideas. I think that they don't really know. And what's crazy to me is that I was under the impression that Lorcana was being marketed to families and people that are new to TCGs. So why is it that our main concern is the health of the meta? Why is it that we are super interested with Worlds? We have to make it a VIP experience for those 28 players. But we're concerned about casual players and the average player. But we're really going out of our way to make the competitive scene the focus of the game. And I'm not saying rotations are dumb. I'm saying the way that we're doing it is dumb. So that was all the reprints that we know. We have no other discussion of how many cards will be reprinted. What will they be reprinted also 10, 11, sets 10, 11, 12, only in 9? Should we expect set 9 to be the reprints and then set 13 when they do the next rotation? Should that be the next wave of reprints? Don't know. I think that was a tremendous fumble. I think they should have discussed that more, and they glossed over that and ran away, and they were just excited for Pooh and Rockstar Stitch. Okay. Already discussed Infinity, Fabled, the rotations. Let's get into that. Now, I think that Ravensburger has known about the rotations for a long time. I could not even possibly begin to guess as to how long, but I think it's definitely been longer than a month. How could you know, KoBaC? Do you work for Ravensburger? No, that would be cool, but I don't. I would like to point to you here with the starter set for set 5. This was the Elsa starter. All the cards in it, I have it set to show me which sets are in the starter. All of the cards are from set 5. Well, that's not so weird. All the starter sets probably do have cards that correspond to the set that they're part of. Haha, no. Set 6 has Shimmering Skies, which is set 5, and set 6. This is the other starter set from set 6. Set 5, set 6. Set 7 starter has set 5, set 6, set 7. I promise that in set 8, we will have one that has 5, 6, 7, 8, because that is the trend. And how could I know that? Well, because in set 4, we had cards from First Chapter, Rise of the Floodborn, Into the Inklands, and Ursula's Return. All 4 of the sets. So I imagine what might have happened. They left the door open to do rotations with set 5. Maybe they didn't make a decision yet. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I can't possibly know if they did when they did set 5 or earlier. But they clearly built a box for sets 1 through 4 to be in and sets 5 through 8 to be in. And that is evidenced by them saying we were rotating out sets 1 through 4, and then later sets 5 through 8, and then later sets 9 through 12, right? So they're doing these things in blocks. They don't have to do it that way. They're choosing to do it that way. And I do think that it would be an issue with the starters. If you started pulling out, if we said we're not going to do set whatever, and then there are still starters out there that have cards from that set, but the other parts of the set are discontinued, I think that would be very confusing for players and is ultimately a bad idea. But I think you should either make the starter sets part of the set that they're part of, and only that, or only mix the things in that you're okay with being in there, which I think that they obviously did. So I think that they have known, because they did the set 5 starters this way, when they did set 4 this way, a lot more diversity from the sets. I think they've already made the decision a while back. And my concern and my frustration is that as a consumer, you already made the plan and you didn't tell us the plan. You never even hinted at the plan, to my knowledge. Why not? Why today, from when I'm recording this video until when Fabled drops, it is 115 days. 115 days. We are being told with a little bit over 3 months that our collection is being halved. If I don't buy anything from 9, but I buy 8, half my collection, goodbye. I know lots of people are in favor of this. I know lots of people are not in favor of this. Making Infinity is not the answer. I know that rotations can be healthy. But I think doing it the way that we're doing it and doing it in blocks of 4 sets is too much. And Ryan Miller himself said the plan right now is to rotate annually. He is right there, left the door open for things to be adjusted so that it doesn't have to stay this way. And I don't think that it does. I think that they can make the pivot. Maybe not this set, but I think we could definitely do something to pivot where, you know, you have sets 1 through 8, and then when set 9 comes out, it bumps 1 out. When set 10 comes out, it bumps 2. Set 11, it bumps 3. So that we keep 8 sets in at all times. 8 sets of cards isn't too much. You know how I know? Because all of us were totally cool, minus the Hiram ban, are pretty much completely cool with having all through Reign of Jafar. And who was calling for rotations? There was plenty of people. I saw people commenting that we need to ban Merlin Rabbit. We need to ban Nin Fox. We need to ban Big Sisu or Be Prepared or Whole New World, right? There's plenty of people saying the Shift Diablo. Plenty of cards that people could come up with reasons to have those things banned. Why were we not told about rotations sooner? Why were we kept in the dark in that? They knew. And you know what? The thing is that at the end of the day, I'm left with the suspicion then, did they not tell us because either they didn't make the decision until a couple months ago or because they wanted the older product to be moved? Because they had too much into the Inklands. Have you seen how cheap those boxes are? They printed way too much. I think as a healthy game, we have to be, as players, we need to also be respectful to the secondary market. That is necessary to show that there is continued interest in the product that we are purchasing. We are part of a living game of sorts where new products have to be created, new support has to be for those new products so that the next product and the next set can continue to make and move things forward. That's part of what we all sign up for when buying into a trading card game. If you wanted to play a game that is a self-concealed, you buy just a boxed game, right? That's just the way that it is. And I think most of us understand that. However, there are a lot of people that this game was targeted to that are brand new people to this kind of game. And I think it is insensitive and ridiculous to just glaze over their concerns and their frustrations and just say, oh, this is just how it's done. Suck it up or don't. I don't care. Please buy product. I don't think that's the way to do it. Now, with the rotation schedule, here's the thing that I created. So what we were told, I'll move this out of the way so it's not a distraction. What we were told was that when set 9 drops, set 1, set 2, set 3, set 4 will be removed. When set 13 drops, sets 5, 6, 7, and 8 will be removed. Right? I would argue that we don't need to do this. I would argue that this is actually not good for the future of the game. And I can show you why. Set 1 was released in August 18th, 2023 to the game stores, right? Set 2, November 17th. Set 3, February. Set 4 in May. With year 2, we kind of had a little bit of a hiccup with set 7 because we had August to August, November to November, March instead of February, and then May and May. When set 9 drops at the end of August, the first chapter, right, will be retired, will be rotated out, but set 1 will have just over 2 full years of life. Set 2, on the other hand, will only have, over here, will only have 21 months of life, while set 3 has 18, and Ursula's Return has 15 months of life in the meta. Now, you tell me, fellow player and consumer, do you like the idea of your cards only having barely over a year's worth of life? Because I sure don't. I don't even understand why this is acceptable. The only thing I can think of is either players are so desensitized to how other game companies have abused us as players and purchasers and supporters of their product that they don't even stop to think about how long has this set been viable and playable. Oh, it's only been just over a year. Why is it that when set 9 comes out, we're not only able to bump out set 1? Or we do it in groups of 2. Set 9 drops, we lose 1 and 2. Set 11 drops, we lose 3 and 4, right? So then you kind of fluctuate between 7 and 8 sets at any one point in the meta. Why is it we have to do 4? We're not even close to having 2 full years of life. I don't even think, to be entirely honest, I don't think that any card set should ever have less than 2 years of life. I think 2 years should be the ground floor of good ideas. I don't think anything else should be even remotely entertained. I think it's crap to buy on 204 cards to try to search, all over the place and acquire a full play set so I can play whatever I want, which nobody tells me I have to do. But if I and other players like me are not purchasing enough product to have play sets, then who wins in this? The singles market, right? The people who rip packs and sell singles on TCG Player and eBay and whatnot, or WhatsApp and all this other stuff, where they're going to be, where they're going to be selling their collection in either piecemeal or in playset batches of just, 4 of a card, whatever. They're ripping product to sell. We need the secondary market. The secondary market is good. I think buying singles is a good idea when you're having trouble finding product or there's just most of the set you're not interested in. But if you were to come to me today and say, KoBaC, I am interested in Lorcana, where do I start? What set do I get in? I would say, whoa, now, guy, do not buy a single card unless you have disposable income you don't care about until set 9 drops. Because there's no, or at least until the very end of reveal or release season, when we know what's going to be in set 9, so that we know which cards will be reprinted. Because I would feel terrible if you were my friend and I told you, well, first chapter's got some really good banger cards, so to set 2, set 3, set 4, you should go out and buy those so you can play with them for 2.5 months after Reign of Jafar drops, right? I don't think that's a good idea. I think I'd be a bad friend to tell you that. You should wait until set 9. And what I think this sends, if once you see this, I think what this does is it sets a bad precedent, because then as consumers, maybe, because some of us, we don't have infinite disposable income. Yeah, Lorcana is my hobby. It is one of the things that I do to relax and have a little bit of escapism before I have to come back to real life and deal with real world problems, right? This is a for fun thing. I will survive if the game were to just completely capsize tomorrow. The sun will still come up and the new day will start, right? But I don't want what I am purchasing and what I am investing in to literally devalue in terms of usability, not necessarily in monetary value, but in usability in under a year and a half. And I don't think that's ridiculous to have that stance and that view. Instead, what I think is that when set 9 drops, you should maybe buy a good amount of it if you plan to stick with Lorcana. But when set 12 rolls around, or really set 8 also, I'm planning on buying half of what I did. Really. With Arkazaya's Island, we were finally in a spot where I felt let's get a little bit more. So we bought 2 cases. And I know you might be thinking, whoa, 2 cases, that's a lot of money, dude. Well, my LGS had a discount for buying a whole case. So we bought 2. Previously, we had bought 1. And then 1 also at set 5. A couple, from the beginning, we only bought a couple boxes here and there. And then we kind of started accumulating more and trying to purchase more every time a new set drops. Because I want to have a playset of everything. I'm also actually a player who chases 3 non-foil and then 1 foil, because I wanted to have that kind of playset. What is the point of me doing that with Reign of Jafar? Well, you'll get 15 months of use. 15 months isn't acceptable. Well, then you shouldn't play the game. Well, honestly, I am assessing that. Because I think that this is not cool. I'm trying not to be emotional and trying not to be just a wet blanket on all of this and just say, yeah, there was some nice things said today, but really, at the end of the day, it was garbage. This is the big thing. Rotations is the big thing. And it's not because rotations are happening. dear hateful person typing a mean comment to me right now. It's because of the way that they are happening and to the severity and the speed in which they are happening. I am not the only person who thinks this. I have people who have written me privately because comments were shut off of threads so that they could just let me know, I appreciate what you said and I agree with you. My like to dislike ratio on the videos I have posted about the rotations, 70-80% agree with me compared to the dislikes. The comment section goes back and forth of which one has more comments either in support of what I say or against it. The community is not even remotely close to being in agreement on this. Not even close. Not even close. I don't care what happens on the official Discord. I care about what's happening in the local game stores. That's my concern also is for the players who cobble together enough money to finally buy 4 Rapunzels for Ravensburger to just cast them aside and say, I don't care. Thanks for buying. And no, you can't, every card can't be livable and usable forever. I know there are people who don't understand rotations fully or who are against them as an idea. And I definitely can agree with parts of that. But from someone who makes their own game, I make a miniature game, so my stuff doesn't rotate out. But I can understand potentially from the perspective of Ravensburger that they can't possibly balance the entire game off of everything. I get that. I don't get so many sets that then are reduced to having such a short lifespan. I think in this sense, you buy extra of the first set in the cycle, and then you just start to taper off as you get down to the bottom of the cycle and maybe only buying a couple packs and then some singles. And you just call it a day. Or you find a really good deal on a box or two and you pick that up, but you're like, if I get some use, great. But I probably won't because of the way that they're doing this. And, I know at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to say, well, KoBaC, you should just wait. You shouldn't be talking like this until we see the other cards. It will be too late at that point. Because I think by the time we get to set 11, we will then be able to look back on now at the beginning of May and say one way or the other, either we overreacted or we were completely on course. Everyone told us when the leaks came out, all of the bigger YouTubers and all the bigger influencers and the content creators said, we need to wait. We need to wait until Ravensburger fully says and details all of their plan. They changed nothing. The leaks were 100% exactly the worst case scenario. 4 sets all at once, the end of August this year. I too was telling people, don't just go out and just sell your collection because there's a chance it's not as bad as what we think it might be. And instead, I'm now making a video saying it is as bad as we thought, but I would still say maybe just wait. Don't make an emotional reaction and just dump your entire collection. Unless you're totally convinced that if there's ever a rotation, you're out, then I get it. You're out, right? Or you can play Infinity, which I know is still trying to... It's trying to slightly spin something you don't like to make it just barely, possibly a glimmer of positivity. And I get that. I think I could make other videos to discuss, maybe for those of us who are not happy with it, what is our course possibly forward? I mean, I think at the end of the day, everyone individually needs to decide. I think that this is going to be an exodus for a segment of the player base. I don't know how significant. I don't know how many people. I couldn't even remotely tell you. I know there will be some people who will tell you straight up, I'm out. I know there will be some other people who will say, I'm done. I don't like rotations, all that. And then just still decide to stay because it always happens, right? Or there will be other people who are like, it's not that bad. Then they'll somehow convince themselves that really it's just not as good as what they were hoping and they're going to run away. I think what Ravensburger has done today is overall in their discussion about, the VIP experience and continuing to regurgitate that to ad nauseum, that the VIP experience for Worlds is somehow just so special for those people, which it is for those people. It is. But with that, and then talking about, it needs to be healthy for the meta. I think that at the end of the day, what really Ravensburger is showing with all of this is that their focus on the type of players that they really want to draw to Lorcana are the hyper-competitive players. I would like to play at Worlds. I would like to play at, the big major leagues and prove myself as a player. And it's just, for an achievement for myself. So I aspire to be that. Did. Probably still will to some extent. But I think that Ravensburger has super messed up on not telling us about the set rotation way in advance. 3 months is not in advance. That is literally right before set 8, and we're going to be like, oh yeah, by set 9. That is not really an adequate time for that. And I think that you can say, well, Ravensburger's doing such a good job of communicating with us. I disagree, because when they announced the Hiram and the Fortisphere ban, they didn't even give us to the end of the week, to the end of the set, to anything. They said, go get your deck, unsleeve the rat. You can't play with them. Effective immediately. What? So we go from that, from an effective immediately kind of ban to, all right, 3 months, take those cards out of your stuff. Put them in a box, put them in the closet. Don't look at them anymore. I don't really think there's consideration for the people who are playing the game who are not the super sweaty players, not whether or not about their biology. And I think that is a detriment to the game, and it's going to be very confusing for players. I think there's a big discrepancy between who at the end of the day really is Ravensburger trying to attract. And I think that there have been plenty of Magic the Gathering and other games, other communities who have looked at Lorcana and said, I'm not interested in Lorcana because I don't like Disney, or the game's aimed at kids, or whatever. And now it's confusing, because now the game's not aimed at families. Yes, there will be families who play. I mean, and then those same people could play Infinity at their home already. That's what they're doing right now, right? They're playing with whatever they want. They're playing with extra copies of cards. They're playing with, handwritten cards as proxies or whatever. Those people are already doing that. But the people who go to the game stores, who have now taken that little bit of extra interest and said, I want to, be part of a community locally, but I still can't maybe study the meta. I still can't make my own videos. I can't do this or that. Like, I think those people are being kind of left by the wayside, and there's more of them than there are the competitive players. And I think that Ravensburger has to juggle that and has to navigate that intelligently. And I couldn't necessarily, from where I sit with the information that I have, I couldn't necessarily guide them on the most perfect plan. I don't try to attest to that I'm some super guru or someone even that they should even listen to at the end of the day. I know they've got their influencers and their content creators that they follow and that they support, and I'm not on that list, and I don't know if I'll ever be on that list after this video, but I feel that it is necessary for a healthy community to be able to have a discussion that goes both ways. And I feel that right now, if you disagree with rotation, your opinion is discounted by the vocal people in the community. And I think that, they're just trying to beat you down with the idea that this is good for the meta. It is probably good to remove certain cards so that other things can be played. From that standpoint, yes, Ravensburger has to have a new product created and you to buy the new product. So at the end of the day, the rotation helps them the most. It does. That's just the reality of it. And I'm not even upset about that. I get that part, that they need new product to be sold so that they can make newer product. I get it. That's part of the cycle that we have, and it's just the way that it is. We don't have to do it this way. It can still be changed, and maybe not for Fabled, but it could still be changed for set 10, 11, 12, where we don't lose 2, 3, and 4. They could still change that. They might still ban all 4 or rotate all 4 of the first 4 out, but maybe by the time set 13 comes out, they change their mind and they decide only set 5 gets rotated out. I think it is important for, if you completely disagree with the idea of rotation or into the way that they're doing it, say something, message the company, talk on their Discord, talk on their Facebook post. We need people to speak up. if you really disagree with it, and even if you're in support of it, like I don't think you should stop talking. I don't think that you should keep your opinion to yourself because my opinion matters more than yours. Not at all. I just think that it is not healthy when we got new people who are like, I spent $1,000 to get into this game and now my stuff's being rotated out. Like, what do I do? I'm freaking out. How am I going to even play the game? Maybe other things have changed financially. They don't have the money that they're looking ahead to buy bunches of Set 9 or something. I think us being empathetic with them and kind of saying, yeah, man, that sucks and I get it and this and that, and maybe, the community can help each other and have pointers on how to be able to move forward. We'll have new strategies for new things. All that's good. But what I don't think is good is that Ravensburger just hand waves it and just says, you know what? Trust me, bro. I don't think that that's a good idea. I think that is a stupid idea, frankly. How many game companies have we seen in the last 10 years say, trust me, bro? Lots of them. And not just card companies. I'm talking about video games, all kinds of stuff. Movies, where people start getting nervous about certain decisions that are being made and people just squish them and just say, no, you're not allowed to even think that. We have to wait until it happens. And there is some merit to we have to kind of wait and see as things play out. But I think in this sense, when we have a living game that's going to continue to have new releases, that things can pivot. We're not set in stone. It's not like releasing a movie where it's already filmed, right? The script is what the script is, minus all the reshoots that a lot of the recent companies do. But the movie is the movie. It's a singular product that when that's released, it is the way it is. Unless you're George Lucas and you can still change it afterwards. But everybody else, they're kind of living with the rule that it is what it is. I guess unless you're, making movies for the DC. Anyway, normally you can't change these things. But with card games, things are in flux. They can change. But I think that Ravensburger needs to try harder at being better about communicating big, impactful things. And getting super hyped about new rarities doesn't affect you and me as just players. Yeah, it might be cool to pull one of those, like an iconic Mickey. It's very valuable, I'm sure, when Set 9 drops. But I'm still concerned about the game making it through year 3. And not because I'm doom and gloom and I'm hoping it fails. I'm not. I have bought a lot of product, an embarrassing amount of product compared to other players that I know. So I have supported it. I make videos about it now. I try to help other people get better at the game. I am on board. And I know that at the end of the day, Ravensburger has to make money in order to keep things moving. I get that. I'm fine with that. It's just the nature of the beast. I just don't like it doing it this way. And I think that's okay to say that. I don't think that's condemning the company, calling anyone out by name. I'm not calling for boycotts or anybody being canceled, any of that stuff. Just, can we be reasonable about this? And can we have a discussion about this? And possibly, can we change the way that looks like this is going to play out so that I don't lose too many people in my community because they're frustrated and they leave because their collection is now dropping in value. And yes, there is the possibility that the value of sets 1, 2, 3, and 4 will increase over the years, but that is completely contingent on the game continuing to exist. And a lot of us don't get in this game to be investors. We get in it to be collectors and players. So I think it's okay to be like, I don't really like this. I don't like the idea of this. I don't like the way it's being done. Anyway, I feel like I keep repeating it. It's also because this is the second time I shot this video. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my thoughts. If you disagree with me, I'm cool with you leaving a comment. It's engagement. It still helps the channel grow. If you are against the rotation, I would like you to speak up. And not to create an atmosphere of just a bunch of people being negative. I want the people who are against this idea to speak up because we can make an influence on the future of the game. We can. There's nothing set in stone. All of this, and the thing is that it's already troubling enough that at any point Ravensburger could say, we're going to reprint certain cards. So then as players, we're like, do I buy this $50 card? Because it might get reprinted. It could get banned. With them doing Hiram and it being suddenly and just out of nowhere, yes, it probably was necessary. Yes, the meta is healthier now. But we have to still think about all of those players who had bought the Sapphire Steel and the Ruby Sapphire decks to finally feel that they could be competitive in their store. And then all of a sudden, bam, there was someone at my local store. He was completely brand new to the game when set 7 dropped. He got on board. He started pulling packs. He started getting, he had pulled a couple of Tamatoa and Scrooge. And he was like, all right, the game wants me to play Sapphire Steel. He started buying singles. He started trading. He started doing everything to build the set. I kid you not. He built the deck. The following week, they banned Hiram. He sold all the Sapphire stuff. He traded it. He got out. He's still interested in the game if someone loans him a deck, but he's out. So don't think that it doesn't happen. And that's just one person. I'm sure there are more. I know other people that are already talking about leaving. They were even talking about if even the idea of rotations is brought up, they're already going to get out. So now that it truly is happening, I expect to play with him a couple more weeks. And then that might be it. And that's a reasonable response because, you know, he wants his stuff to last. I get that, you know, all the stuff I've already said, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to repeat myself. But please speak up if you are against this. Whether it's on my channel or you email Ravensburger directly, you make your own content and talk about it, whatever. Just don't let it just be at your game store or in private conversations. Speak up about it. We could have enough people that we do influence things and they do make a change. I appreciate you guys watching and commenting. I'm excited about being able to make more videos. I'm going to assess things myself on my end for how set 8 looks for me. I had been considering us, like I mentioned, buying 2 cases, and I was thinking of doing 1 case of just doing an opening video separately so I could have the other case to open with my wife. And I'm not so certain now. I know we have plenty of time for more releases and other things to be said from Ravensburger and such and on. I just gotta, you know, think it through for myself and for my own collection and things, and, you know, and at the end of the day, I don't want more stress, you know, like I have enough really big real world problems that my hobby is just supposed to be fun. And you know, it's a competitive outlet for me, not necessarily for some other, you know, am I dumb for buying these cards because they're going to lose complete value, you know, and everything. And, you know, cause you got to think of that. I think you do. Other people don't think about that at all. They'll shuffle their cards, ripple shuffle, bridge shuffle, whatever they decide to do. They shoot them through a Pringles can. I don't care. Not everybody tries to take care of their stuff and have it so that they can, you know, hopefully it becomes worth something one day. I try to. So needing to be aware of that. And then with big things happening, you know, I don't know. This is the first time I've stuck with the TCG to this level for this length, because some of the other games, they became dead after a few sets. So this is the first time I'm going through rotations completely. But anyway, the video is long enough. I need to go. I need a break. Thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you later.